Hello YouTube fans, here again. I'll do something in my office, why not? And that's being Elvis the Pelvis. That's right, the king of rock and roll. I said I'd do it, and I'm a man of my word, I'm going to do it. That being Elvis. That's right, Elvis. And this one is going to be the movies of Elvis. This one being, if I remember it, Blue Wire. That Blue Wire. Now, this would have been the second film he did in Technicolor, because as we all know, in the 1950s, most of his films were black and white. They were black and white. So this was the first time, the very first time you got to see Elvis the Pelvis in colour. Well, not the first time, this would have been his second, as I just said, the second colorized Elvis film. His first one, what he did, would have been G.I. Blue. Seen G.I. Blue, not a bad one, but I also like this one. And to be open and honest, I'm more of a lover of his topical, his exotic Elvis films. So they're like Blue Wire, Funny in Acapulco, Paradise Rise style, and some of the other ones he did. I just like, the beautiful irons, the beautiful scenery, and so on. And it does show a lot of beautiful scenery in this. It really does show a ride back in that era, how it was back in 1961, which is when the film was made. The scenery is beautiful and everything about it is beautiful. But I'm not going to lie to people and say, oh, Elvis films are not cheesy. I'm not going to lie. I mean, in the past, when people insult the films of the 80s, whether it be Arnold Schwarzenegger films, whether it be Sylvester Stallone's action films, and any other action films, and say the 80s films were cheesy, it normally annoys me. It annoys me. But this is the one where I couldn't offend Elvis. I couldn't, because they are cheesy. They are cheesy. But it's a different era. And it's a different time, let's not forget. A lot of films in that era was, you always knew that the guy was going to get a deal. The main character would have a fight and he would win, because that was the star of the film, and that's how films were made in that era. So you got a beautiful song from the opening, obviously sang by Elvis, called Blue Wire. And it's very similar to G.I. Blue. It's Elvis, he's just come out of the army. Never mentions he's fighting a war or anything, he just left the army. And he comes out of the airplane, snogs his old sis to wind his girlfriend up, which is why he didn't slap him. Then he's diving in the car, and you can always make a drinking game. Of any Elvis film, you can make a bladding drinking game. You can make a drinking game that is going to have a sing-song. As long as we're old, he's driving his car. Again, you've got this typical two-way film, which done a lot in that era, where, let's say I'm talking now and there's a two-way film of me in a wire. You can't see it's a two-way film. That's how it was done in that era. So he's in the car, he's not in with his girlfriend. You can tell it's two-way film. And then he has another sing-song, I am always true to you. Again, a beautiful two-way film. And the story, basically, just to cut the story short from me having a sing-song every 2 minutes of how many sing-songs he has in the film, because, you know what I mean, I wouldn't recommend making a drinking game. I don't want you to go to hospital and get your stomach pumped out. But the story is with a rich family, right? You've got the mum, the dad, the mother's a bit stingy, and they want him to run the business what the father runs, which is a pineapple business. But Elvis's character, he wants to basically be an hostess. He wants to, be a guide and show people different areas of a wire. And he wants to make money out of that. And he's in love with his woman. But his mother basically wants him to run the father's company. And he wants to have his own independence. It's kind of typical of families, they're rich. You basically they own your life. So that's basically the story. So you got Elvis having a sing-song. You got one called Kick in the Sand, where Elvis has a sing-song. There's a couple of Beach Boys in it. But the one song I do love, and he actually sang this song, and it was, trying to think of it actually. Why men do only fools walking, for I can't help falling in love with you, without singing the rest and killing an Elvis song. Yeah, falling in love with you. He actually sang that, and we all remember that song. It's a very popular song, and he sings it to this oldie lady on her birthday. he becomes a child. The mother's moaning and whinging and crying away for, but he gets to do what he wants. So you've got one dude in it who's a bit of a spoilt brat. You got all these other girls, you know, all looking pretty. Again, you got Elvis having another sing song. And Dad, I'm having drinking socks when I'm doing this. Obviously, I'm in the shop. I don't want to get done and end up in hospital having my stomach pumped out. But yeah, he has a sing song there as well. He goes to piss here. I was expecting him to sing Jailhouse Rock, only because he gets into a fight, but he gets out. It's very funny how he gets the jobs in this. He manages to get jobs, barely any qualifications, barely any CVs, no references. But you can in every Elvis film, he has a sing song as a guy in a show, or he becomes a presenter, or he's an hostess. It's like, I mean, how can I get Elvis's qualifications? I mean, I'm in Pinados. But yeah, he does that. And I do actually admit, I do like some of the sing songs he has in the film. I like them. So yeah, to cut the story short, it's not a bad film. So there's one bit where he gets the dude who's spoiled, smacks a bum, because basically you find out it's not the devil's spoiled. It's sort of like, you know, the character, sort of like Elvis, it's has a controlling family. You would get away with that now, smacking girls' bums, but again, different era. And the woman thinks that Elvis is cheating with the cheatser because they've got a stew cheatser. It's quite nice to look at. I had two teachers like that when I was a lad. But it's not the case. She's in love with Elvis's dad's mate, who works in the pineapple business. Cut the story short, he marries the woman of his dreams, has another sing-song. You've got a beautiful scene where the boat's moving in a wire. Snogs to do. You've got that typical thing you see in the old 60s and 50s and so on movies. You've got the end of the movie. So for an Elvis film, it's not a bad one. It's not a bad one. Like I say, you got a lot of love songs in it. You got a lot of songs in it. You got a lot of singing in it, and you got Elvis doing what he does best. As for the scenery, I've got to admit, and I'll give it its due, the scenery is beautiful. It's beautiful, the scenery. It's made to look beautiful. The Technicolor looks very, very beautiful. You know, the very early Technicolor. Well, not the early Technicolor, but you know what films are like in that era. And I've got a bit Elvis in that era. I liked his acting there. I can generally see where people say he wasn't the best acting. There's bits in there where his acting can be a bit off. There's bits where he really does a good performance, and there's bits where his acting goes a bit off. But if you're going into an Elvis film for award-winning acting, you're never not going to get it. Basically, in that era, people just want to see Elvis have a sing-song. And that's what he does. He has a sing-song. You can guarantee he'll have a guitar in his hand and he's playing it. And he's having a sing-song. And that's what I like about an Elvis film. To be honest, you know, if you get sick of seeing sets, you get sick of seeing violence, and even though I don't like the word teaser, and even I admit, I bloody hate the word teaser, I've got to bloody admit that this one was a good one. You know, it was a typical sloppy love story. But I kind of liked it, you know, it had a happy ending, and sometimes I go for that type of film. So for an Elvis film, for the second Elvis film to be in Technicolor, do I take it serious? No, I say it's more of a musical because, you know, in real life you have a sing-song every 5 seconds. But for a story, it's not a bad one. So for that, a 10-star rating, it's a classic. I remember it on the days of TV. Yeah, blew away into them. Aloe out. See you later.